You are live with America's mayor. We're going to have a nice, frank, open discussion like we always do, clear through the cesspool of lies and who knows what they do in Washington. Gosh almighty, they get so contorted in their own lies. It reminds me of that, when first we practice to deceive, oh, what tangled webs we weave. Whoa, the tangled webs. Media, government, whatever. This one needs to be straightened out. It's tilting. This is tilting. So those of you who are on Getter, don't feel upset if you're tilted a bit. We're going to untilt you in a moment. And if it doesn't happen in a moment, I'll do it myself. You'll see. All right. First of all, look, it's tilted that way. Can't you see that? There. Okay. Just a little bit that way. Okay. We like as close to perfection as possible. Not perfection. Never, ever get perfection. In order to create a more perfect union. Not perfect. Well, this is going to be very hard for me to report because it really devastates all my views of what happened and how it happened and who did what. And but I understand tomorrow morning, very early tomorrow morning, there's going to be a massive raid at my good friend Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago. Once again, they found out that several days before that whole breakout of COVID CPR virus, they had 4 servings of bats at Mar-a-Lago. Bats brought in by weird friends. And this may have started the whole thing. Trump is under serious investigation by the state police, previously known as the FBI. And the chief alligator, in Florida, they have alligators. Alligator, get the joke? The chief alligator is a person particularly known for his extreme credibility, Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen is a guy who appeared on television to testify before the Democrats Can Lie, Republicans Can't committee, and said, I never asked for a job in that administration. Never. Within 2 minutes, we produced a video. There he is on the formerly CNN anchor Chris Cuomo show saying, Chris, I have it on good authority that I'm going to be the next chief of staff in the Trump administration. Oh, that's only the beginning of 22 lies. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Couple I have myself. By the time the Southern District was finished and they threw him out. You can't use a guy like this. I would love to have you put him on the stand if I'm defending someone. By the time the cross-examination is over, I'm Clarence Darrow. I mean, the guy's whimpering. After about 4 or 5 lies, you kind of really fall apart. And this guy's a big baby. I mean, this guy would fall apart after about 2. But he's the chief alligator. And that may actually, but I mean, there's no doubt that Biden knows and can prove that CCP virus did not come from the Wuhan lab. I mean, it's not logical that it had come from there. It's the only place within 1,000 miles that had bats. Only place within 1,000 miles that had the exact virus. Only place in 1,000 miles that had a long history of negligence and letting things escape from the laboratory, so bad that the UK quit the year before. Um, and numerous countries were asking for much better rules. So instead of allegedly trying to save people, they'd stop killing people. But of course, from the Chinese point of view, it's the second that's more important because of the large population. I mean, it really was hard to figure out that it came from like this virus that was so unusual and unique, came from this laboratory 5 miles away that was for the last 10 years trying to manufacture and had succeeded in manufacturing this virus. And it had a history of leaking things out. Really hard to figure that out. However, the miserable criminals who run our government, instead of telling us the truth about it, came up with this big story about the Chinese like to eat bats, and particularly in that area of China. And it must have been the sale of bats at the open market that did it. That immediately was punctured by the following. It is true there are certain very isolated areas of China where they do eat bats. The closest one is about 1,000 miles away. This part of China despises the idea of eating bats, and they have no bats. The only bats they have there are the ones that are brought there for gain of function research by criminals like Fauci, who do that despite the fact that the United States doesn't want them to do it. And Fauci does this because Fauci is science. Remember? I am science. Where are you? Oh, there you are. You're science? You're science? Wow. No, he's not. Here's a better description of Fauci. I'm greed. That's why I'm not going to tell you. That's why I'm not going to tell you anything about the royalties that I got for the last 5 years. You have no idea how much I got for all those medicines, some of which are causing terrible problems for you. But what do I care? I got rich. I got real rich. Tony the rat. That's what we got going on. So the Department of Energy has now summoned up all the bravery it's capable of, and it's made a conclusion. This is about 2.5 years after I concluded this, that it came from the laboratory, but with only a small degree of confidence. No, only with a small degree of courage. I figured it out based on Dr. Maria, something they never do called reading, and then another thing they never do, common sense. I put it all together and I said, as I just explained to you, Dr. Maria, who put on the first person who was a whistleblower, who told her definitively where it came from, made all the sense in the world. And then it started to make all the sense in the world why the incredibly crooked health industry we have in this country was covering up. And then the people from Moderna made it really clear when at New Year's time they had a party for becoming billionaires. Oh, yeah. We didn't get sold out for pennies here. America got sold out and a lot of Americans got killed for a lot of money. If we don't have the guts to investigate this and find out all of what happened and put these people away for a very long time, we're in for a hell of a future. This is an industry that we can't distrust. It's about our health. It's about our life. It's about our future. It's got to get straightened out. I'm going to have Dr. Maria on a little later to give you maybe a more balanced approach or whatever, but let me go through a few other things. Fox, which I have been very disturbed with for quite some time, probably from the moment they called the election for Biden in Arizona with 5% of the vote in a state in which if he won by 10,000. You can't call that in the first hour. How can you call that state in the first hour? It's a 2% election. Meanwhile, at the time they called that state, they weren't calling Pennsylvania for him, where he was ahead by 800,000 votes with 65% of the vote cast. Well, I am excluded from Fox because I have the opinion that the election was stolen. Instead of having me show my proof and try to disprove it, they censor me, which is the way of despots and fascists, not people who believe in the First Amendment. Our media is very much a part of the destruction of our First Amendment. Big part. Rupert Murdoch now says that his stars endorsed lies about 2020, and he chose not to stop them. This is from NPR, so we've got to be a little bit careful that it isn't overdone against Murdoch, right? So we're going to try to be fair and tell you it's from NPR, and I've done no independent analysis here. I just got this. In the heat of the moment, right after Election Day, media magnate Rupert Murdoch knew that the hosts on his prized Fox News channel were endorsing lies from then President Donald Trump about election fraud, and he did nothing to intervene. Asked whether he could have stopped it, I could have, but I didn't. That's the evidence that he gave to Dominion Voting in a lawsuit for $1.6 billion against him, against Fox. I don't know how much of this is true, how much of it isn't. I'm not going to name the talent that he's thrown under the bus for being liars. He is getting into his late 80s. This is not the Rupert Murdoch I knew. And to think that after all that I've done and been through with Fox even, that I'd lie about the election, it just couldn't be my honest opinion, huh? Turns out that everything else I was accused of lying about is telling the truth about. And now when Fox does the retrospectives on it, they leave me out, right? Was I telling the truth about Russian collusion? Yes. Who represented Trump in that case? Me. Who turned out to be right? Trump and me. When I went on and gave them unbelievably telling evidence of Biden's corruption, they were the first to report it. The bribe in Ukraine turns out to be 100% true. They got a little nervous with the hard drive. Murdoch's post, after a week of fretting, finally played it. But Wall Street Journal wouldn't use it, and Fox was nervous about it. Just turns out to be now 100% true, and they're all patting themselves on the back for it, except they forget they don't have it except for me and Bob Costello. Nobody went to Fox with it. Nobody trusted Fox with it. Nobody trusted the Post with it. They trusted me with it and Bob Costello. And I gave it to them. But I'm still I'm banned because I say that it's my opinion that the election was stolen, which I would like to back up with facts, the way I've been able to back up with facts the $31 million given to the Bidens that now clearly shows the favoritism that Biden shows to China and not the United States. It's all becoming clear, isn't it? I was the first to point out when he gave up the Bagram Air Base that this had to be a compromised act. What president would give up an airbase 400 miles from China, except one who's been bribed with $31 billion? He's also received millions from Russia, Ukraine. All that turns out to be true. When the hard drive was vindicated, they played all kinds of things, saying how wonderful they were and how great they were in covering it. And no, they weren't. Nobody trusted them with it. Trusted me with it. And I went on. I had to take the slings and arrows of being called a liar. And they won't acknowledge that. They don't even acknowledge my role in 9/11. You know something? I'm getting to the point where I'd rather it be that way, because I think that, I don't know, I may put them in the category of the New York Times that I learned from my hero, Ronald Reagan. Used to say about the Times, oh yeah, I pay attention to it. Then I do exactly the opposite. This is very, very dangerous, what I'm reading here about this attack and this playing with the truth that goes on with these media people. And we know that Fox isn't the only one. We know that Fox is not the only one that does this, but these are some of his very best anchors. And to throw them out to dry like this is disgusting. And by the way, if they're all going to have to say that they weren't telling the truth, I hope they don't. This reminds me of this reminds me of Thomas More, doesn't it? Where you had to take an oath that the king was the head of the Church of England. And you didn't have to believe it, you just had to take it. If you wanted to keep your job, you wanted to keep your head. Most people took the oath, kept their job, and kept their head. And Thomas More didn't, lost his job, lost his head, went to heaven, became a saint of the Roman Catholic Church, and the patron saint of lawyers. Hey, Tom, you better start working on the last part. Lawyers ain't been doing too well. You may have been the last one to get up there, but let's try to concentrate on news organizations that breed integrity, not games, not bullshit, not money, not what's going to happen to our audience. How about the truth and loyalty and not double-crossing people? They're just as bad as the people they cover. I've said that for a long time, haven't I? This corruption doesn't exist just because of the crooked politicians. It exists because of the crooked press. Now, Ukraine. Ukraine is at a, people love this word, inflection point, decision point. And America's got to make a decision really soon, I think. America's got to make a decision because we have an administration that has no concept of national security. They don't have a plan for anything, right? Let's go domestic. They didn't have a plan for East Palestine. They didn't have a plan for all of the shortages in food and all the backup in cargo and the plan. Let's play it by ear. We're liberals. They didn't have a plan for the massive inflation they've caused. Oh, let's play it by liberals. Money will come off the trees. Ba-ba, 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 ba-ba. Well, here's where you got to have a plan. What's the plan for Ukraine? Now, some of you out there are, I'm sure, very much in favor of Ukraine defeating Russia. There may be some of you that want Russia to defeat Ukraine. I doubt it. And probably the other group of you thinks that it would be good if Ukraine defeated Russia, but it's not the most important thing in our universe of issues to face to protect the people of the United States. Some would even say Palestine deserved a little more consideration rather than just taking off for Ukraine the way Biden did, and those people still feeling completely shunned because the president hasn't even mentioned them. But in any event, what is the national security plan for Ukraine? So I'm going to play big boy now, like adult in the room, which I don't think we have anymore. We've got media people who get, you can't say that. You can't say that. You better not say stolen election. You say stolen election, we can take you off. You can't believe that. You have to believe what I tell you to believe. China might not like it. Is it possible that China stole the election? No, not China. They kill people. They don't steal elections. Right? Gee. That's a thought, isn't it? See, this in a free country, here's how we develop the truth. We examine ideas, even crazy ones. I had a great political advisor, David Garth, and whenever we were stuck for we were like either behind or we couldn't move or we were in a rut in a campaign, he would call timeout, take a half day or day off, and he'd have what he called blue sky session. Blue sky comes from the finance world. They send out stocks to get an idea of what value should be. They're not like real. They're just like offers that are put out to see what kind of value can you get. They're not illegitimate or anything. They're just not. They're not actual shares. They're like a poll. He said, "We're gonna have a blue sky session. Everybody, we've got 10 people. We're all gonna sit around. I want you to tell me whatever you think we should do to win this campaign. I don't care how crazy it is. I don't care how nuts it is. Nobody is going to remember 2 days from now who put out the crazy ideas or the good ideas. You're not going to be stuck with it when everybody makes fun of you. Nobody's going to do that because this is the way we get to be creative. So now tell me what's the craziest thing you can think of so we're down by 2 points. We can go ahead by 5. And then somebody would say, oh, let's blow something up or something like that. Or let's invade the Democratic headquarters, or I don't know, some crazy thing, right? And then they'd start in, and somebody came up with the idea, maybe we should do workfare. In New York with all the liberals, they'll make Giuliani a monster. They'll make him a slave master. They'll say he's running a plantation. I did. They did. And we got 500,000 people off welfare. Nobody's ever done that. No, 600,000, 500,000 working. Nobody's come close. And people come up to me now and thank me for that. Yeah, not the New York Times that called me some kind of a racist, but the people who benefited from it, most of whom were minorities. And I'm very proud of it. But the reason I say this coming up with these ideas, this is what we're destroying with this woke cancellation and definition of what you can believe and not believe that must be part of the majority opinion. We'll become like China. There's a reason that China had to steal all of its intellectual property because its educational system does not encourage intuition. It doesn't encourage creativity. It doesn't encourage inventiveness. It encourages memorization and very, very solid practical skills. Now, we're falling behind in those, and you can't fall too far behind in those. But there's got to be a balance between the two. And they don't have it, and that's why they steal their inventions. And that's why they will never overcome us, God willing, unless we keep Biden for too long and he just hands it over to them. So remember, if people want to put out ideas like that, the more you try to suppress them, the more you create the possibility that there is something to those ideas. Because if they're so bad, why not lay them out and knock them out? I've never been afraid to debate anybody. You remember me on CNN. I'll go back on. What would they like to debate? They want to debate whether Georgia was stolen. I'll show them. I'll show them the votes. I mean, we'll just do it. We'll just go right at it. And then you can agree with me or disagree with me. That's what America is about. If I can't do that, we're becoming something else, aren't we? And we are becoming something else under the horrible, inept Biden administration. Not only are we becoming incompetent, we're becoming fascist. So let's see if I can encourage Dr. Maria to come over and give us a little wisdom on, and do we have a microphone for Dr. Maria? Yeah, we have one right here, ready for her. Or do we want to use the one that's already set up? Yeah. Good. Now, you should know that Dr. Maria today, hi, Mayor. Hello, Doctor. Dr. Maria, in her capacity as my partner, but as well as my doctor, she did my radio show because I'm sick. I went to the doctor today, got pills. Or did I go yesterday and get pills?
You went yesterday.
I went yesterday.
You were.
I was kind of out
fever.
of it today.
Yeah.
I was able to get a podcast in around 6, but that was struggling.
By the way,
when you see this podcast,
yes.
I don't want you to be too cruel on me if you see my eyes closing.
Yes, and it's about the Ukraine. So make sure you go to rudygiulianics.com or subscribe on Rumble. I'd say subscribe on YouTube, but we never know when YouTube's going to censor.
Oh yeah, this last
even
one,
though we're on right now.
This last one could have.
But I want to give a little synopsis of what I talked about on the radio show, and I'll try to be pithy. So the Wuhan lab, right? As Rudy said, it's been doing gain of function work for a while. I knew about it for a long time because it was published in what we call our professional medical journals. There's two, Nature and one called Viruses, that Dr. Shi Lengyi, if I say her name right, it's spelled Zhengli. She started publishing in and around 2013 or so about how she's getting close to isolating the bat coronavirus. And I'll tell you why people do gain of function. It is to see what would happen if viruses from the animal kingdom jump to human beings. And at the same time, they try to develop vaccines. It's not been a successful program. And here's what I did on the Mayor show today. I tied it to another pandemic. And it's true. 1977, we had a pandemic that killed 7 million people worldwide. It was called the Russian flu. It was H1N1. And it was called the Russian flu because it was first identified in the Soviet Union. And it was from one of their biolabs. The very interesting thing about this, and I forgot to mention it on your show, is it was the same strain. There was a pandemic in like 1949, 1950. It was that same strain. So you think that they were saving that strain for further use for bioweapons. And after 9/11.
And we're talking about now.
So that was in 1977.
Where?
It started in the Soviet Union, but it was a worldwide pandemic, killed 7 million people, but it was from a lab leak. So that's what it has in common with COVID-19. So I'm sorry, I jumped a couple places.
No, I got it.
But so Dr. Shi Zhengli was publishing in the medical journals about her work with the bat coronavirus. And we, meaning our government, was helping finance it through Eco Health Alliance.
Oh,
And it wasn't just Dr. Fauci.
bad
It was
company, bad
Dr.
company.
Francis Collins.
Ooh.
And I know I was a hospital CEO. So when you apply for grants, you have to really jump through hoops, as you should, if you're going to get free taxpayer money. And there's a lot of follow up and a lot of things you have to prove. So there's no way they can convince me they didn't know gain of function work was going on. Plus, Dr. Ralph Barrett from the University of North Carolina was also working in that Wuhan lab on the bat coronavirus. She was called the Bat Woman, he was called the Bat Hunter, and she came to America to the UNC. Now, the Obama administration had put a moratorium on gain of function because too many lab leaks, and they knew about what happened in 1977 from the Russia bio lab. I also learned after 9/11, the Bush administration paid for a lot of us in hospitals to go and learn about chemical warfare, bio warfare, because they were predicting that was the next thing after, the planes, that it would probably be a chemical weapon of some kind. So we went and we had extensive training. And one of the things we learned is there was over 26 countries doing bioweapon research with viruses and bacteria and fungi.
Hmm.
And we know today that there are, so from the research we've done in the podcasts we've done, there are what's called a bio level lab 4. It's the highest rating. That was the Wuhan lab, although a year before the pandemic, Fauci got a warning that they weren't keeping up with safety tips. So this could have probably been preventable. But
Now,
anyways,
there was a point that UK quit.
France
Quit. I'm sorry.
when they were doing the building, it was supposed to be to certain standards, and China wouldn't cooperate. So France pulled out of that project. But I kind of lost my train of thought.
But greedy America didn't.
It's just so unfortunate.
What-
And
Was Fauci making personal money on this?
I
What are
don't
those
know.
royalties about that he won't tell
We
us
don't
about?
know about these royalties. Now, it came out first in 2014 that government employees in Dr. Fauci and Dr. Collins' departments were getting royalty payments, and there was never any follow up. So finally, Open Books did a Freedom of Information Act request a year ago, and they found out those royalty payments were still going on. And you could see that Fauci and many other scientists got a lot of money, maybe even millions of
His
dollars.
creepy partner, Collins, too, right?
Yep.
Wasn't he getting money?
Francis Collins needs to go in front of Congress too.
People think he might have gotten more.
He could have. I don't know. But to me, I try to put myself in other people's shoes. There's always two sides to a story. Where you were at the time. But listen, I could have never allowed this to happen. If I was Dr. Fauci, and in November of 2019, there was a mysterious respiratory illness in Wuhan, I would have stood on my head saying, President Trump, America, world, listen, we're doing gain of function in Wuhan right now. It's probably the coronavirus, bat coronavirus we've been manipulating over there. Stop everything now. Who knows? Maybe we could have prevented anything. Now,
but then
President
the
Trump,
president might have, who created that?
President Trump.
Fauci would have had to have said,
Okay. President Trump.
Little me. See a little me right down here.
President Trump had the guts in January of 2020 to stop all travel from China against Dr. Fauci. Against Dr. Fauci. Can you imagine if Dr. Fauci did that in November? What all the lives we could have saved in the world. Northern Italy got hit really bad. They had migrant workers from China
I remember all the
working
complaints we
in
got.
Milan and around Milan, and all those elderly people succumbed to coronavirus. Part of that, not to get too in the weeds, is we were treating it wrong in the beginning. We were ventilating a lot of people who shouldn't have been ventilating, and we actually killed them, putting them on the ventilators. It was more about changing positions, some good old nursing techniques, putting them on their stomach, changing them on their side, giving them steroids for the inflammation, oxygen. But anyways, we did learn from our mistakes in the medical world and then changed our treatment somewhat. But it's a sad story. It really is. And we're supposed to. I talked a lot about systems theory thinking, and that's how my mind works, that we shouldn't be afraid of mistakes we've made. We need to analyze them. We need to make things better. And I even use the election. Like to say we shouldn't go back to the 2020 election is a travesty to every American. We should go back. We should see what was done wrong and we should fix it. We know there was illegalities done at the time because election committees were changing rules when they had no authority to do it. So we know things happen. We know people stuffed those mail-in boxes. We've seen it on video in 2000 Mules. So to deny what happened with COVID-19 is terrible.
And also to destroy people
Yeah.
who are standing up for what they believe is the truth. It is possible that they're just seeing a slice of the truth, and maybe it isn't the whole thing. But when these people tell you these boxes were being stuffed in the middle of the night illegally, they're telling you the truth, and they're shocked that something like that could happen. But to dismiss them, to frighten them, to make them feel they're going to lose their jobs, I mean, this is horrible.
And you know, the radical left used a lot of illegals and a lot of people from the Hispanic community to do this. They worked with them, they paid them. They had a system once they stuffed the boxes to take a picture of the box. And it was very kind of gang like. And it's a travesty to use people like that. Someone who may be not making enough money and you give them money and they're tempted to feed their family. Other people just don't care. But it was wrong. I mean, it's just wrong.
They used a lot of Antifa and Black Lives Matter too, about half.
Yeah. And you know what's terrible? We're the United States of America. We should be doing everything the best. And if we don't, we should be striving for the best. To have countries like France having better election integrity than us really burns
Not even
me.
close.
Yeah, like if say I was a citizen of France and I was working in Belgium and I wanted to vote in, you know, I really live in France. I just have this assignment in Belgium, but I can't get there in France. I have to do a lot to prove who I am. And I have to have notes from my employer that I can't get back to the election. It is very, very stringent, even for absentee ballots. They would never allow full mail out ballots where anybody can fill it out. There's no integrity. And why do some states have it illegal ballot harvesting, which it should be illegal everywhere, but places like California say it's not
because
illegal?
Some places are Republican and believe in elections by integrity, and other places are Democrat and realize they can only win by cheating, by bringing in massive amounts of illegals, by letting criminals out of jail and letting them vote. I think the only thing you'd need to know is the criminals vote for the Democrats. Therefore, those who aren't shouldn't. How about that as a simple way to look
There's
at
a
it?
lot of good people who are fooled and taken advantage of by the Democrat Party, especially when you look at some minorities.
Well, how about Chicago tonight is having an election?
Yes. Any news, Ted, on the election in
There's not going to be
Chicago?
any good news.
No, it's probably. Are they an
It'll
hour
be one
behind us?
Democrat or another.
Yeah.
50 years of Democrat mayors. They're all Democratic candidates. What do you think is going to happen in the next 4 years? The same thing that happened in the last 4, with a few more promises, possibly more corruption, possibly less.
I forget the
That's
statistic
about it.
I said today, but it was like car theft is up 114%, like some crazy thing. And it's this weird notion. The radical left and these radical soft on crime DAs believe property crime isn't a crime. When we had the 2020 Antifa and BLM riots where they destroyed billions of dollars worth of property, besides about 30 people died, maybe more. But just saying property, they didn't care that billions of dollars. They didn't care whose property it was because they said it's just property.
Well, they let everybody
have
go
them
free.
work for something and have it be destroyed.
Well, and also you find, as Dr. Wilson brilliantly pointed out in his various treatises, that when you allow property crime, it becomes worse and worse, and it leads to violent crime.
Absolutely.
And then ultimately it leads to pervasive crime. That's what I changed in New York. I did it the opposite way around through the career criminal program. I had a person come up to me 2 weeks ago, said this a few times. Probably it's one of the saddest things said to me. He said, Mayor Giuliani, you did a wonderful job. I said, well, thank you very much. You must be very sad to see it all ruined. I took all that I had not to cry. I said, and I didn't want to lie to him and say, well, it hasn't. I said, well, I think we can get it back. I think we can get it back. He's not far from wrong. Certainly isn't going in that direction. It hasn't gone all the way in that direction. We're still in better shape than a lot of other cities. But there's no hope really with the budgets that they put up, with the unrealistic attitude of the governor, with the foppy silliness of the mayor, who can't stick with anything, can't fight for anything, and seems to like to go out at night and then do nothing. And I mean, he was supposed to be for charter schools. Now he's caving in on charter schools. I mean, and that hurts. It hurts. It hurts if you want to look at it this way. I don't, but they do. If you want to look at it from the point of view of race, he's hurting the people of his own race more than anyone else with charter schools. African Americans want charter schools more than anyone. African American politicians are the most opposed to it. You go figure that out.
Yeah.
Go figure that
It's
out.
almost upside down. You want to give I wish our public schools were better, right? So that every child has the opportunity to the best learning. We keep dumbing down our standards. I feel like a broken record, but I did this education plan that was very mirrored to health. And this was about a decade ago. I did this, and I lengthened the school day. I also provided exercise within the school day because American children we have an obesity crisis.
Yeah.
So, anyways, there's a lot of social things too. How to not that many people use a checkbook anymore, but also teaching kids how to take care of themselves, how to cook, how to save money. All those things were incorporated into this plan, but very high standards. Advocating for parents to teach their kids how to read before first grade. In my plan, I had an 8th grade syllabus from Kansas. Most college graduates would not be able, at the end of each year, they would have a test to be able to go on to 9th grade. So this was 8th grade. Most college graduates couldn't pass that 8th grade test. And it was from like 1880. And since then, we just keep dumbing down, dumbing down. How can we be the best we can be? How can we have self fulfillment unless we're giving people those opportunities? We should get rid of the public education department in the government. The government touches anything and it's ruined. I swear to God.
I think Ronald Reagan, the first time he ran in 1979 and 1980, supported the abolition of the Department of Education. And I think a lot of people kind of laughed at it, but it really makes a lot of sense, because I don't think we realized then the pernicious effect of Marxist theory that was working its way through the American government since Franklin Roosevelt. And their theory is state education, eliminate private education, let the state educate. And that's what they've done. They've gotten a federally, centrally located authority that can stamp down what you want. Like the communists, it's not even run by the government. It's run by the party representative. Well, schools aren't run by teachers. They're run by the union representative.
Yeah.
Just like the Department of Education is run by the education industry, not by educators.
Yeah.
Sometime, if you want to get a sense of how bad it is, watch The Hunt for the Red October, the first half hour of it, when the admiral from Vilnius has to kill the party representative before he can take over his own boat, because the party representative really runs the ship, just like they really run everything in China. That lab, 100%.
Yep.
And Fauci That's the most revealing comment, if you know the Chinese, that you can make. There's no group of people, no organization ever in the history of the known world that's killed more than 60 million of its own people. The best news that Xi Jinping can get is another million Chinese are dead. For that little moron to say that showed his allegiance to the CCP. For him to think that the Chinese don't care about death and they won't lie to him, got to be making a lot of money with them. If he sold his soul, I'd like to know how much he got for it.
It's awful. We should always put human beings first.
Well, particularly
And they
if you're
didn't.
a doctor,
like, look
or
at
anybody, I guess, really, not just a doctor.
the whole unholy allegiance with Moderna and Pfizer. Pfizer, who has more infractions for unethical behavior, more than any country I'm aware of, any drug company. And they tried to hold information about their studies with the COVID-19 shot for 75 years. Finally, a judge said they had to release, and they still haven't released all of it. But we could see from early on the increases in miscarriages, increases in myocarditis. That stuff was known early on, and it was hidden from you, from me.
And look what they did to the doctors who took opposite positions.
Yep.
And obviously, doctors sometimes who on just a city or state level, but they did it with some of the most prominent doctors in America.
Dr. McCullough, Dr. Malone, Dr. Zev We love that man. He unfortunately passed away from cancer, but that man went out on a limb to treat his patients. There was no treatment. We all knew, Dr. Fauci knew, that hydroxychloroquine had great antiviral properties, and he successfully treated like 3,000 patients, and they tried to ruin him.
Yeah, they did ruin him for all intents and purposes, except for the fact that he saved 3,000 people.
Yeah, God bless him.
I think that earned him a pretty good place where he is now.
Yeah. Ted, did you have something to say?
We have the first results, a majority of the results in the Chicago mayor's election.
I'm praying for you people of Chicago. What is it, Ted?
Everybody
with
lost.
73% reporting. Paul Vallis has come in with 36%. Brandon Johnson has 20%. Lori Lightfoot is at 15.7%. Jesus Garcia, 14%. Willie Wilson, 8.8%. Jamal Green, 1.9%. Cam Buckner, 1.9%. Sophia King, 1.2%. And Roderick Sawyer at 0.4%. We have the results up on the screen. This is with 73% reported.
73% reported?
That's right.
And Vallis has what?
36%. So he will be moving on to the runoff.
Vallis,
yeah, because they do it. They do it by the majority,
Vallis is in
right?
first, and second is Brandon Johnson at 20%. Lori Lightfoot at 15.7%.
So she has no way of going forward.
So she just needs to get. She needs to get ahead of Brandon Johnson, who's about 4% ahead of her with 73% reporting. So it would be
She's
tough.
She's a wackadoodle. Chicagoans, I'm praying for you. Now's your time for freedom.
It's a tough
and get some normalcy.
It'll be a tough margin to close in an 8-person race with just 27. I guess it depends where these votes are, right? What parts of the city? Someone
can
that
you
knows.
Tell, like the big city's still outstanding.
Well, and so this is a city for this election. I don't.
Oh yeah.
We would need someone who knows these neighborhoods to kind of know where this outstanding votes are. But I know. But your point stands. That's what you meant. What areas? So, for example, if this was New York City, and we were talking to Mayor Giuliani, I could name a cross street, and he could tell me, well, this
I think
I would do there, right?
I believe that things are so bad in Chicago, the machine doesn't even have a candidate here. In other words, I don't think it's a Democratic machine candidate here. Vallis was the former head of education under, I believe, Mayor Daley Jr., and did some very good work at the beginning of his tenure, because Daley was put in charge of education before the mayor of New York was. And it went really well for a while. I met him a few times. Impressive guy, smart guy. Then things started to go wrong. I don't remember what they are, but with the union. He can't be a favorite of the union. He was at odds with them quite a bit, unless things have changed. But I'm relying on information now about 15, 20 years old.
God, you know everything.
Paul was a young man then, and had 2 or 3 good years. Then the union cracked down on him because they cracked down on everyone. They like the Communist Party.
I think we should get rid of all unions. I
Well, I
understand
don't know
why
about-
they were important at one time. I really do.
Well, I don't know
But
that
the
I blame.
Department of Labor now we get so many laws protecting the employee. I don't know why we need unions.
Well, I there's an argument one way or the other on
Yeah.
that, but there's no argument about the teachers union. The teachers union is a destructive force
Marxist, communist.
in American life. It's hurting our children
Yep.
more than any other institution that I can think of. And it's a communist organization that's anti-American. Why we tolerate it, I don't know. And it doesn't help good teachers. It just helps bad teachers. I mean, they spend all their time trying to require us to keep on board and pay perverts and losers and people who get in trouble, put them in the rubber room, put them there for 5 years and pay them. I mean, it's crazy. And you can't pay a good teacher a lot more money.
Right.
The first time I raised that with Randy Weingarten, she looked at me like I was crazy. And I looked at her like, boy, oh boy. Wow. No wonder our kids, every year that she's been in charge of that national union, our performance as a nation goes down for our children. She may be really good for the lousy teachers. She's terrible for the children.
Terrible for the children, which is number one.
Oh, she
but how
loses.
about those good teachers?
Well, they all leave. They
must be
lose
frustrated.
morale.
Yeah,
That's why charter schools and private schools and homeschooling is going up 10, 12% a year.
Yeah.
People are abandoning the public schools, which is what they're going to have to do. They're going to have to get abandoned so they reinvent themselves.
Yeah.
That's the only way this works. The problem with this is the education you missed for the children in this group who are waiting for these changes, you almost can't make up. This is irreparable damage that are done by these creeps to our children. And if you think you got your child out of it into a nice school, remember your child will grow up in an America with all the children. And their capabilities will have a lot to do with your child's success as well. There's no one person runs America. The more talented America is, the more successful all our children are.
Yeah.
The less talented America is, the harder it is for any of us.
Yep.
And that's why you have a stake in the terrible education that goes on in the democratic cities, even if you're in a nice suburb with a great school. So don't feel, if we don't get rid of the Democrat Party as presently constituted, we're not going to make it as a free country.
I don't think that's going to happen until people from within that party said, you know what, I've been silent long enough. I'm not going to be silent anymore. It's got to implode from within. I do believe that. Because we can point out their craziness, the Marxist elements, but
50 years,
yeah.
Chicago,
Yeah.
look at the condition.
Yep.
Anyway, why do you want to be part of a party whose history is slavery?
Yeah.
You want to, a lot of these left wingers want to change every name imaginable because of insensitivity. It's insensitive to call the Cleveland Indians the Indians. So we call them
Oh, what is it now?
the Guardians.
But isn't there a local tribe there that they surveyed and they said they could care less? They looked at it as a badge of honor.
Every time they survey the Native Americans, about 98% say they don't give a damn.
Yeah.
It's like a lot of stuff that's done in the name of black people who don't want it.
Yeah.
Like defund the police, 80% are in favor of the police.
Yeah.
Or how about no identification?
Yeah.
Most black people get insulted.
Yep. That's
Oh.
what I hear. Can you imagine? They think I can't vote because I don't have an ID. Of course I have an ID.
If you require identification, you'll be suppressing the black vote, which is tantamount to saying the blacks are too stupid to get ID. And there are states like in New York where blacks have ID at a higher percentage than whites. So maybe whites are stupid.
It's just crazy. Yeah, go ahead. Did you want to wrap us up?
No,
We
He
still
wants
have
to
a-
speak. He wants to speak, but he's shy.
I know, Ted, you've been kind of quiet tonight.
Following results here, keeping up with the on-screen graphics, and reading comments. Of course, everyone loves when Dr. Maria joins us. So when she's here,
I've been
even
telling her
more
that.
reason
Keep
to be-
encouraging her.
even more reason to be quiet. Of course, when we have Dr. Maria here, we know who steals the show.
Oh.
So just a few minutes to go here.
What did they say?
That people want to see more
What,
of
they
Dr.
steal the
Maria.
show? Did
What-
they say steal the show?
They're saying Dr. Maria.
Oh, poor Rudolph. Rudolph, don't cry.
They love the chemistry between the both of you, of course.
My best friend.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
they do their Sunday show together on WABC.
Oh, our Sunday show is a home run.
Number one.
Number
You
one
gotta
on
watch our
Sundays.
Sunday
Yes,
show, and you'll
uncovering
never,
the truth.
you'll never stop. Once you
Yep.
see it, you'll never stop. It's really good. And this is good too. You know, we're going to introduce here, but I don't want it to get overwhelmed with it. Like 2 or 3 questions toward the end that they can call in.
Oh, yeah.
Would
Yeah.
you like that? Say something back out there. Would you like to be able to call in 2, 3?
Let us know. I know the answer is going to be yes. We get so many comments from all 50 states.
Our problem with it is we have 1 hour, and how many?
Fastest hour on the internet.
You would have to be tolerant with us that we take like only 2 or 3 calls.
And they're a minute or 2 each.
Yeah, they have to be
we'd have to
quick.
do that.
Got to get through your point
Or I'm
quickly.
thinking of other possibilities. Maybe we do once a week. We do
And what
call-ins.
people may not
A
Just
lot of
call-ins.
yeses. Everyone's commenting yes. It's
Oh,
like-
good.
Maybe we
It's-
just do call-ins one.
Would you
one
like
night.
call-ins? Comment below. Yes, if you would like us to implement a call-in.
Do you think
a
people
number you can leave.
realize that this is on multiple platforms? It's on Rumble, it's on YouTube, it's on Getter, it's on Twitter, it's on Twitch.
It's on all these outlets, and we are building up an audience on each one. Of course, we want our YouTube audience to be aware of where we are for whenever we're put in a short timeout. But we are working with YouTube, being proactive.
A short timeout.
A short timeout because we're being proactive.
They probably
and
still have the same old
working with
COVID
them.
things. They'll probably censor just because we said the word COVID.
we have been working with them on these issues. So, Mayor, closing message tonight. We can hear you loud and
Oh, do
clear.
you want to use this mic? Rudy?
Oh,
We
for
can
a
still
moment.
hear you. We
Yeah.
can still hear you.
Bye,
All right, so
everybody.
I'll go
I'll
in.
let you do
Well, no, don't go away.
Okay. Okay.
I know you stole the show, but I'm still not mad at you. She did a great job, right?
Closing message, Mayor.
Like my closing message is that we've got to go back to tolerating other opinions, other people's opinions. You know, people say things that we think are stupid or dumb. So they're stupid or dumb, and point them out as stupid or dumb. I mean, don't take away their right to express themselves. And then you may find out when you think about it that something that you thought was stupid or dumb actually makes some sense. Doesn't happen all the time, but sometimes it does. Now look at this. It is now clear beyond any doubt, Doctor, that the mask is useless, 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 and useless.
Yes, and I have to quantify that real quick, just because I always have to make sure the right information is out. Cloth masks are absolutely useless. The surgical mask, maybe about 40% protective. N95s that are fitted to your face, have to be professionally fitted, are the best.
But the 95% that you saw out on the street,
Oh, did nothing. Just did nothing.
and all these
Yeah,
people
yeah,
were
yeah.
misled and lied to and
Scott.
penalized and arrested and beaten up and called selfish. And the first time I put it on and I walked downstairs in my condo and I missed a step and almost broke my knee.
Because you wear glasses.
Yeah, because I couldn't see them below my
Just
glasses.
going to show my
I said
hair
to
goes
myself,
out. Yeah.
this is ridiculous. Never mind.
Yeah.
We'll be back tomorrow. We'll got plenty more to talk about. I want to get into a little bit more of this Fox destruction of the First Amendment.
Ooh,
I really think this is, it's a big blow
it is a real blow.
to have Fox become a non-First Amendment station in which they in which they allow either reporters to lie, don't stop them from lying, or think about stopping them from giving their opinions.
They are mostly opinion shows,
And
right?
we know
Just like
they've gotten
CNN,
rid of a
MSNBC.
lot of people who were highly opinionated, but really tremendously effective journalists like Lou Dobbs.
Oh,
Gosh, we may
Clara.
be down to like 2 that abide by the First Amendment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know whatever happened to her. She's fabulous. Nobody knows more about the border than she does.
All right.
I also love it when they have the experts on crime. There's nobody in America that's reduced crime even 1/10 of what I've done, and they don't put me on.
Well, that's why you have your own platform.
because
Bye, everybody.
because I may have the opinion that the election was stolen. Okay. We'll see you tomorrow night. God bless America.